All right, we are live. So what's new, Norm?
Hey, just had a good show last time.
Yep.
Figuring we can do some ad hoc stuff here and maybe have a little fun. One of the ones I wanted to look at was this. Everybody, when they do the hunting for comics, they have a special store they maybe go to that they don't let anybody in on. But this is one we both know and have traveled to several times. And I picked up for $10 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Training Manual #1. It's got a very iconic cover with a red background on the top by Celsun, I guess is the publisher.
Yep.
It's #1. And my grade's about 6.0, which, based off of what I'm looking at on Go Collect, is anywhere from $10 to $30. I paid $10 for it. But what do you think of independent comics like this? Buying and holding on to them because it's obvious not many people own this. I mean, I've never seen it before.
Yeah. So there's. We'll go a little into the indie books.
Sure,
Like
sure.
Stillwater #1.
Oh God, you're still pushing that. I love that book.
I know, right?
It's a great book, man. It's a great pick, dude.
Such a good book. But no, the for like really early 70s, 80s,
Yeah.
90s indie books, there isn't really a big printing of them. So
Yeah.
you can actually get, decent book quality. But since it's one of those things where some of the books are printed extremely well, others are just good luck trying to find a 9.8 ever. But I mean, for the most part, they're pretty well done.
Yeah, I found this one rather interesting. It just kind of it caught my eye, and then you know how that is. You've got to own it at that point.
Oh, 100%.
You
Yeah,
can't leave the
it's
store
one of
without
those,
it.
yeah, it's one of those things where, having a book like that is it definitely it increases its value. It really does because
And I think this is kind of an advanced move, right?
yeah.
Somebody that's not trying to make a quick buck, but
Yep.
that's been around a while, like me, buying this book, knowing that over time it'll probably increase in value,
Yeah.
and it's a good purchase. I mean, for $10.
Oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. And the reason why I say it is because I've pressed it multiple times. So
Have you really?
yeah.
Have you-
I've,
See, I say things I haven't seen them or I haven't come across them, but you're dealing with such a huge volume of books there that you come across a lot of the stuff, even the rare stuff, and because it's rare and people know that, they're going to there's a greater likelihood you're going to see it in your pressing operation.
yes, that is
Would you
100%.
say that's correct?
Yep.
I mean, or am I
100%.
getting ahead of myself? I want to add some numbers before you jump in with about a little bit more about the independence.
Yeah.
And on this particular book, over the last 2 years, 91% return 9.8, 12% return 9.6, but then a flip flop weird decline in 9.4. But that's only two sales. The other two numbers had stronger sales numbers.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going up in value. And I think the more we see Ninja Turtle stuff,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
and I mean
go wrong.
to kind of go on top of that, the interesting thing is not only is there's a huge Ninja Turtle craze kind of going on. Last Ronin kind of started that off.
I love that book. Love that book.
And then
That was one of your best, most recent picks, in my opinion. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
no,
you.
you're good. No, so Last Ronin really kicked off the Ninja Turtle craze again. And then what then that did was actual Ninja Turtle #1 actually started to break actual records as well. But then what people were finding out is that they couldn't get their hands on Ninja Turtle #1s, but yet like a training manual that was done by other companies, because there's not just that one company. There's actually another company that also makes one as well. And I believe the name of the comic company escapes my mind right now. But yeah, no. And that's what happens with a lot of the indie books. But then since it became such a huge craze, you got stuff like NECA, Super 7, which are toy lines. They're now capitalizing on it, and so they're now releasing exclusive toys that pretty much showcase either the movie or the comic book or animated TV show of the Ninja Turtles. In fact, actually, Free Comic Day 2021 was one of the little showcase items that they had was a 4-pack of the original black and white Ninja Turtle figures.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I independent books are a little out of my bailiwick, as you know. It's not really my cup of tea. I like to dabble in them, but there's so many of them out there in the bins that I go, especially the cheap beat up stuff that I go through. I come across them constantly. And when I see a pristine, say, what's a good book that we've all seen?
You got Spawn ones. I mean,
Spawn ones, yeah. But I'm thinking something. What's that purple creature? What's his name?
Max.
Max, like Max 1.
Yep.
Now I've seen so many of those books over the years, and I have been slowly picking up what I feel are near mint plus copies. Whenever I can, for 50 cents or $1. Now they're of course up, but that's the kind of book I'll grab. That character looked like he has potential. I don't know anything about the book really, other than that. What can I say? I'm a Marvel kid, man.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Max was a big one during the 2020. Especially if you have like Sam Keefe's actual signature on the book. It fetches quite a big price tag. Also, even though the movie didn't do too well, that Rise Zero. That was
it got. That's interesting. We need to talk about that because it kind of got beat to heck on when that thing came out. It was like the first of the movies to come out online during the pandemic, and it just hosed that book. Oh my God, they got like no bump out of that whatsoever. What's your thought?
Well, I think a lot of movies can make and break a lot of comics. I mean, you look at like the new Spider-Man trailer that just was released this last week, and now you have things like Spider-Man Annual #1s that are jumping through the roof. And whereas, I mean, when I bought mine, I think I spent $300 on it, but it's a very pristine copy, and they're
annual
the
first
#1.
annual.
Yep.
What year was that? Roughly.
I want to say it's like 64, if I remember right.
It's Silver Age stuff, man. You can't go wrong with that.
I mean, there's a ton of books that are just kind of skyrocketing. But the movies do play a big role in that. Like a Green Goblin, Amazing Spider-Man #14 has been going up.
I love that. That's one of my favorite books. I own that book.
Yep.
Love that book.
And then you got
I got a 3.0 in it, but it's a solid book.
It's a 3.0.
Solid book to own. Yeah, I know, 3.0. I'm the low grade guy.
No, nothing wrong with that. And then you got the what was it? Let's see, what was the other books that were going up? Amazing Spider-Man #6 is going up. First Appearance of the Lizard.
I have a 1.0 in that.
I think I bought mine at a 1.0, and I think I bumped up to a 4.
Nice. I don't think you could bump my 1.0 up.
No,
I don't know.
I don't
You have magic hands and magic presses and stuff, but that thing's gone to Valhalla.
But then like then you got like with Doc Ock showing up in the trailer, you have Amazing Spider-Man #3 going up. So I mean that book I was already noticing was starting to rise, because that book used to be about 1,000, maybe about two, but now
have you seen the trailers? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
yeah.
you seen the trailers for the new Spider-Man movie? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, my thoughts. I'm actually really excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
I was actually really surprised that I was excited about it, because when I first kind of originally left Spider-Man No Way Home, I was like, yeah, or no, it was Far From Home. Far From Home, that's what it was.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. I had the same reaction.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Now, supposedly the storyline that they're talking about is the storyline called Spider-Man One More Day, which is where Mephisto kind of makes a deal with Peter Parker, and basically he has to give up his marriage and stuff like that. But yeah, so
that depends whether he has a good marriage or not.
right. So it's kind of interesting if that's going to be a good actual book series to actually pick up. I know that I've been pressing a bunch of them.
What are your thoughts? I mean, as opposed to a newer book or something just straight out of the Silver Age on Spidey. I mean, Spidey Silver Age all the way, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, Spidey Silver Age. I mean, they could literally take the exact wording from Spider-Man, Spider-Man Volume 2 with the One More Day storyline, and literally copy and paste it into a movie. But the original characters are where the actual fans actually gravitate more towards. So you're going to have better returns on your first appearances instead of just the overall storyline.
I think that's a very 21st century way of putting that. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I've been seeing with the market and with what I've actually been seeing just in stuff that comes across my desk. So, yeah.
How many books would you say? Now, I know you have a pressing business and you work retail, so I know you come across hundreds of books, but how many books would you say you're tracking on your own? Just the price, kind of gauging them, kind of keeping an eye on them that you might own. What number would you give that, or would you give it a number, or do you even do that?
What do you mean by that?
Like on Go Collect. Not that I want to sell their product, but they do have a watch alerts type setup, and a lot of sites have that where you're interested in the comic, you click on it, and then it alerts you when there's a price change or a sale or whatnot. Do you watch anything like that? Is there anything like that you're kind of tracking that, as far as like big picture, you watch 50 books, 100 books?
I watch pretty much what comes by my desk. Because if someone's willing to pay extra money onto an already made purchase, those are the books that I'm looking out for, because it's one of those things where someone's spending extra money to put into their book so that they can bump them up to those extra high grades. And normally they've already kind of done all the research for me, I guess, in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Or it's something that I've been kind of monitoring, and then I kind of see, okay, well, now this person's getting on board with this. I understand why you're, pressing this and, getting this cleaned up and ready for CBC. So,
Yeah, I'm looking. I've got several hundred that I track kind of loosely. But I just enjoy that. I just enjoy watching the rolling inventory of what I've got and what the prices are fluctuating at. I get kind of a kick out of that.
No, and it's something that's you can really kind of see what your actual what your profits are if you do own those books. And so if you actually are putting forth that effort to actually go out and purchase that stuff, then when you actually see your actual value, that's where everything starts kind of making sense in a way.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier to explain to the wives.
Oh, I just don't even want to go there. I mean,
I know.
I would not want that. What is this video of you about?
I know.
Yeah. I'll tell you something interesting though. I'm going through my list, and one of the ones that pops out was total failure of mine, which is Birds of Prey #1. I purchased that when they were going to do the movie, and there was all this talk about the movie just before they pulled that particular director off that project. And then I didn't overpay for it because I bought it into the kind of the talk of it, but it definitely just, that Bird of Prey just did not get off the roof. It just sat there like a half dead pigeon on a park bench. It's just pooping on everything.
That's kind of DC Comics and
that's a good
general. Just because DC books.
DC fans, please send all of your emails to.
Yeah, right. Just start hitting that dislike button right now. No. But no, it's no. I've been buying a lot of DC stuff, so I think their stories are strong. I think that what they're doing with the company is interesting. Because I mean,
they're figuring it out. I think what's going on is we're seeing like a real-time group figure out how to make their stories palatable and profitable, in the vein of a Marvel.
Well,
kind of do what they were doing going in.
So the interesting thing is that DC books for the longest time were $2.99, $3.99, just kind of in that wheelhouse. And then it wasn't until like after COVID that they started going into that $4.99 bracket, and then even the $8.99 bracket for their.
You're talking brand new recent books,
yep,
right?
Brand new, just off the shelf. You go get them today at your local comic book shop. But like what I'm noticing is that a lot of these books, they're not just sticking just one story in them; they're actually sticking 2 stories in them. So you're getting kind of a lot of people, they're like, well, I don't like spending that much money on my DC books, but they're already spending that much money on the Marvel books that are, thinner, and yet DC has, in my opinion, better paper quality, and it has, like when they actually print their books, they actually print their books extremely well. So you can almost just walk into your local comic shop and almost pull off a 9.8 right off the shelf. I mean, they're that well taken care of.
So that's an interesting point for folks that are speculating with DC stuff.
Yeah.
Is look, just be a little circumspect, double check it before you buy it at the store, and per Steve, you have a good chance of coming out of there with a high quality book.
Yeah.
Just because of the kind of quality paper they use at DC, which is interesting. I think your earlier point too, that DC is really, we've talked about this before, but DC is really undervalued, and I think that's the place to buy right now. I agree with you 100%. I haven't started my purchasing of it, but I just buy little pieces here and there, like the Harlequin I told you about earlier.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right. I think it's very undervalued. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and like when I go to different shops, I've been asking them, I was like, hey, what has actually been selling mostly for you guys? Is it the big Marvel keys? Is it the newest Marvel book? Is it the newest indie book? What's kind of, or what's the most commonly title or publisher that is being sold in local comic book shops? Just as the everyday clerk that's sitting there scanning the books and everything. I've been noticing that it's been a lot of independent books at the shop that I currently am a part of. But the other thing is, each store kind of has their own kind of little group of people that actually support their shop. And some of the shops I've been going to, they've been saying, yeah, we've been seeing a lot of people pick up a lot of back issues on DC Comics. And so that's what kind of makes me kind of go, okay, well, maybe I should start, going and actually buying into a little more DC stuff.
The problem I have with DC stuff is I don't know it that well, one.
Yeah.
And two, they printed a lot of it in Bronze Era and the Copper Age. I mean, there was a ton of it put out there. And so I kind of have trouble sussing it out. It's not like some of the, maybe they produced a lot of horror stories in the 70s, but there's only so many copies printed of it. It seems easier for me to collect that than it is the DC, but I suppose that's the fun, is getting in and learning.
Yeah, I mean, one of our really good buddies that we both know, he's kind of like my DC expert, that if I'm ever having any questions about DC books, I always give him a call. And maybe one of these times we'll have him on the show. But
is that Jarrett in Utah?
Yes, that would be.
Yeah, Jarrett. Oh, he's such a good buddy.
But yeah, I mean, if you're talking Silver Age, you're talking, even, I think he even goes as far as some Golden Age stuff that he knows. But he knows all the bronze, he knows all the copper, he knows a lot of the newer books that have, like your first appearance of Crush and stuff like that. So. Yeah. So is there any other books that you were wanting to showcase tonight?
Yeah, sure. Let me jump around a little bit.
Because I got a couple picks.
Go for it. Let's hear yours.
This bad boy right here.
Oh yeah.
Yep. New movie's coming out here soon, and I've been seeing these things like crazy. Like,
let me look that up.
I mean,
Amazing Spider-Man 101?
101. That's the one. So, yeah, when I start seeing more than, say, 10 copies of that book, coming past my desk, then, yeah.
Wow, that many, huh?
Yeah.
A lot of people just have been sitting on that book for a long. That's a good book.
Yeah. And it wasn't actually really that too unreasonably priced. I mean, when I got mine, it was a while ago, but I think I paid like $60 for it. But the overall, they're not really too terrible to track down.
No, I'm just plugging in some numbers here to see where we stand with it.
Yeah. I mean, first appearance of Morbius movie's coming out.
Which I would like to predict right now is going to be over the top and really a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, you got Michael Keaton in it. We've already seen that from the trailer. So I don't know how Sony and Marvel are going to play nicely with each other on that one.
Yeah.
But it should be pretty decent. But yeah, I think Jared Leto's going to, do an amazing job at this, and I think it's going to be one of those really over top movies, like you said. And
I'm counting on it. That's the one book I do not want to sell into the movie.
Yeah.
Typically, I think I purchased my book about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And all from the point of view of the movie coming out and eventually selling into the movie. But I got to tell you, at this point, if Leto knocks it out of the park, they'll do 2 and 3 at least, and the prices will continue to skyrocket. And I don't see selling that book anytime soon.
No.
Quick numbers on it. 9.6 has gone up 100% over 2 years. Last price $9,600. A 9.2 up over 84%. Last price sold in August for $4,000, and then if we get down there in the low grades, 6.5 for $750 in late May of this year, and that's a 60% return there. So it's nothing but green across the board, which is what you usually get with Amazing Spider-Man first series,
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those, you know, and that'll kind of bring us into the next book I got as well.
Oh,
But
what's that?
it's gonna be good old Amazing Spider-Man number 18.
And you're bringing all the classic stuff.
I know. Well, you know me, I like the classics. So, um, but that's the first appearance of Ned Leeds. So, um,
Yeah, now there's a lot of speculation that Ned's all thinned out. Apparently, he got on the right Hollywood diet, and he's going to come back as some kind of a villain, which would be just beyond odd. It'd be like watching this guy grow up from teenagehood to becoming a full. It actually has an interesting twist to it. We might not have seen that really before like that.
I mean, Ned Leeds was the Hobgoblin.
Yeah. No, I got you. I'm with you on
Spoiler
that.
alert on Volume 1 of Amazing Spider-Man, but I mean, you're a few decades behind, but
yeah.
But no, yeah, I could really see Hollywood actually taking that character, putting him into a goblin suit, and then, I've been seeing a lot of Amazing Spider-Man 238s, and I mean,
that's what's the trick with the 238 book, Amazing Spider-Man 238? Is there something that collectors or investors should be looking for when they go to buy that book raw to try to?
Yes, there's two big things. One, condition, as always. Make sure your staple quality, your page quality is really good. I always, that book is really good, so it should be having those nice, crisp white pages. I would kind of stay away from a little bit of the off-whites because those will deteriorate faster than, say, your white pages will.
Sure.
The second thing would be make sure that it has the lakeside tattoos in it.
Yeah, what do you call them? Lakeside tattoos?
Yeah, it's the lakeside tattoos.
That's what the CGC guys just refer to as tattoo inserts, right?
That is correct. Yeah, and you'll even see a little. They'll have like a little star at the very bottom of the book, and it'll actually say includes lakeside tattoos inside. Now, that's where the value really lies in, is those tattoos. If that book does not have those tattoos, it is worth probably about half the amount. So you're talking about, I mean, from when I was looking at the O Street Guide, they actually have 2 spots that are dedicated pricing for with the tattoos and without the tattoos. So when you actually have the tattoos, you're getting your full absolute value. Sometimes you might be lucky, like when I purchased mine, mine actually had 2 sets of tattoos in it, so pretty neat. But it actually had 2 little inserts inside of it.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yep. So it's a little misprint defect, but they overall they don't grade it any differently if it had 1 set of tattoos or 2 set of tattoos. As long as they have the tattoos, that's all that they're really concerned about.
Which do you like better, Spider-Man 18 or Spider-Man 238?
I like the 238, but if I'm going to, the Silver Age fans out there, it would definitely be the 18. But both are beautiful books. I absolutely love both.
I think if I had to choose for a speculator or even a medium-term investor, I'd go with 238 with the tattoo insert.
Yeah.
But if I was looking as a collector, having a nice 18 in your collection is probably a huge deal.
Yeah, the 18s are kind of really underrated right now. So you can pick one up for, I think I paid $100 for mine. Which, I mean, spending $100 on a double-digit Spider-Man first appearance book, that's not bad at all.
What I see up here when I'm looking at the sales numbers and whatnot kind of corresponds with what you're saying. I think what you're talking about, if we get a little deeper on that, is not just the sales prices, but the fact that the retailers who own that book aren't as clued in on the value of it, and so therefore you can still find it
Yeah.
reasonably priced.
Yeah, you
Would
can.
you say that's correct, or
Yeah,
what
one
do you?
hundred percent, 100%. I think that the book is very underrated, and I mean, we already see him in the movies, and yet you're still paying, maybe at most $300 for a really nice copy. The problem is with that book is that the nice copies don't really exist, so that's where you have to be very, very careful. And anytime you're buying any sort of Silver Age book, I'll put this disclaimer out right now,
Yeah.
is check your staple quality.
Oh,
I
great
cannot stress
advice.
that enough, because the one thing that will happen when you check your staple quality is you'll find that um, a lot of books during that time frame, if they were subjected to moisture, or maybe they were out in the garage for too long, what happens is those middle pages will either be, if they got rust on them, they'll bleed onto those pages. Um, so then you'll get a bad grade on those. But the other thing too is that since you're looking at a Silver Age book, be extremely careful. But a lot of times the book can be complete, but it'll be detached in the middle.
Yeah.
So those center pages will be detached,
Yeah.
or at least on the leaflets on that. So yeah.
I think that staple comment, that's great advice. That's really great advice.
And
And
that's
something
just
that I
that's just
think,
buying comics, anyways.
yeah,
There's
I think it's something that a lot of guys like me tend to gloss over when we're rolling through and just grab an inventory wherever we can,
Yeah.
or, it wouldn't happen if it was a book I really loved and really wanted for my collection. But if it's just buying and selling, yeah, I can definitely overlook
Oh yeah.
some staples, and probably should not. So that's a really great warning for everyone
Well,
out there.
and it can go even a little bit further, where when rust actually starts to appear on these staples, and then it say that they're a tarnished staple is a tarnished staple. That's just what it is. And there's no
Oh
way
my
of getting
God,
around that.
this reminds me of the Chads from 2000,
Right.
hanging Chads or whatever. Sorry,
So,
go ahead.
so when you actually have the staple quality is really, really good, then the book will present really well, and so forth. Now the other thing is if it does have, say, a little bit of rust, maybe you don't want to get it graded right now, but if you put that book into your collection, later on down the line, what will happen is that rust will actually bleed through to your pages, and if it bleeds through so much, it'll actually start deteriorating the pages. So the pages will want to actually
Eat the pages
it'll eat the
around it, right?
pages, and then what it'll also do is it'll start staining the front cover as well.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah, it's a nightmare.
So
What happened to my
staple
comics?
quality is always my biggest thing whenever I talk to people about if they're going to buy a really old book, make sure that you have your staple quality.
I think that's great advice. That's great advice. Absolutely. You get any other books?
I have one other book.
Okay.
Now this is a toughie right now.
Okay.
Because it is extremely expensive right now. But as expensive as this book is, I think that there's still maybe just a tiny bit of margin to be made on it, and it's going to be good old Giant Size X-Men #1. So
Nice book.
Yep.
That's a book I wish I'd purchased 5 or 6 years ago. I could have, and I wish I had.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those books where when I bought mine, it was the right time to buy. There wasn't really too many people that were buying into Giant Size X-Men.
Just a notation here is that I'm looking at every possible grade, and there is not one grade, including 0.5, that's below $1,000.
Yeah, you'd be sick if you know how much I paid for mine. It's $300 and 30 Amazing Spider-Man, or no, sorry, $300
I remember you telling me the story.
and 30 copies of what was Spider-Man #1.
Yeah, that's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, that was, oh yeah.
hell of a deal. But made sense probably for the proprietor at that time, but
Yeah, no,
my God,
it
that's
was
a hell
it was a vendor at a show,
of a.
and I had just bought those books for 25 cents a piece. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great book. Let me. I just want to pull some numbers real quick on it.
Yeah, the numbers are kind of they're a little insane on it,
Yeah, no, I
but
bet. I just.
yeah, nine eights just sold for 40,000. I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I mean, you got first appearance of Colossus, you got first appearance of Nightcrawler, you got first appearance of Storm, and then now with Marvel releasing that, hey, look, you know, it's also considered the first team appearance Wolverine now. So, uh, you know, some people want the Hulk 180 and the Hulk 181 and the 182 because they're big X-Men fans. They want to have Wolverine's first appearance. You can
Call it a
also
grade. Call it a grade, and I'll give you the percentage growth in it.
what's that?
Give me a grade, any grade.
Uh, we'll go off of the one that I have right now currently. We'll say
Okay.
85.
Okay. 84.7% return over 2 years. Almost $6,000 worth of value, but actually there's been higher. It's just at a little lull of the summer. You're probably looking closer at $8,000 worth of value, and maybe higher than that. I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah,
go
we
to
can
for that
we can get
mix.
some pretty low grade ones. You know,
Here's a 9.0. Here's a 9.0 for 9,600,
yeah.
and 138% return over the last 2 years. Yeah, that book is very sought after, very popular. Now, here's a question for you.
Yep.
Marvel comes out with their X-Men. It's liked or it's not liked, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
They run about 2 or 3 movies. Do you think this book is going to collapse in value after that?
So if the book, I would say no.
Okay.
Even if the movies don't do that well, I would still say that that book is so strong by itself that you shouldn't have to worry too much about whether or not you're going to make money on that book. It's a solid book. It's a very sought after book, and people who own it are extremely happy they own it, and they don't want to let them go. In fact, it was actually kind of going back to when I first got really big into comics. That was actually my number one holy grail book to actually own and to get Stan Lee to actually sign it. Not that he had anything to do with the book, but it was just something that I always wanted for my collection.
Let's talk about something coming up a little sooner here, which is the new Venom movie that's due out.
Yep.
How do you think Venom Lethal Protector 1s are going to hold up after the movie, considering the movie looks like about a B+ to an A- to me at this point based on the trailers?
I think, well, Venom Lethal Protector is a really good book. It has a lot of nostalgia factor to it.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's a lot of people that actually they want the book just to actually just have a really nice copy in their collection. And
Would you say more collectors own that book than anything else?
I would say probably about
50-50?
I'd probably say about 75% of Marvel collectors own that book. I would.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on that book. That's
Yeah.
true.
No, there is. There's a lot of them. But that being said, you know, a lot of stores are buying collections and they're selling to people. So some shops they'll have multiple copies of it, and usually the nicer copies they'll send off to get graded. But the thing is since a lot of people own that book, a lot of people don't store their comics correctly. So what will end up happening is, you know, they'll think that they had this beautiful book, and it's you know, the one thing that, whenever I see someone's collection and stuff like that, they think that all their books are 9/8s, and but in reality, I kind of mentioned this to you before, but they kind of have those puppy dog eyes where, they're so in love with that book, and so they really overlook a lot of defects to it. So, but those are the defects that CGC and CBCS and PGX are all looking for. They're very unbiased when it comes to those type of books. And that being said, what you think might be a 9/8 really might be more like a 6/5 in an actual grader's eyes.
I think it's a solid book as a
Yeah.
copper age speculation play, as an investment, and it's great for a collection too. And not only that, I've made a lot of money on that book over the years,
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to put 5-6 years ago. I was able to pick up every copy I wanted for like $3 or $4.
Oh yeah, they were in everybody's back issue bins. I mean, you couldn't go into a shop with not finding
Yeah.
2 or 3 copies of that book.
Yeah, no, nobody cared about it. It didn't
Yeah.
even, it was just kind of one of those, oh yeah, it is a big book. It is a key. You should get it if you like this character, but nobody really took it seriously. And now it's finally come into value, considering how many printings of that book there probably are, or
Well,
how much
so
of a publication it had. I don't know. I'm just assuming there's a lot.
so there's the regular red cover one,
Yeah.
which is the foil red cover, and they didn't really do a second printing. But then there's an error copy, which is a black one.
Yeah, I know the error copy's worth some big bucks.
Yeah.
I've never seen it in person, but I've seen it online, and I know it has some real value to it.
Yeah, they are extremely expensive. But it's for a good reason, because those are the copies that I don't know what quite happened during that process. I don't know if they just didn't get the red foil when they actually printed the book, or what kind of was the kind of reasoning behind the black elusive variant, we'll just say. But yeah, there's
Black elusive.
Yep, the black elusive
Okay.
variant.
Black elusive.
But yeah, the value on those things is just through the roof. But there's probably like, maybe out of all the Venom Movie protectors out there, there's probably like 1% of those.
I find it interesting as a book, just because it's such an obvious book to flip and to sell, that most people just kind of run past it on their way to higher spec items. But
Yeah.
there's so little risk in selling your Venoms and selling the lethal protector. One of the things that I'm always able to flip them with is because I know I can get another copy. There's so many of them around.
Yeah.
Might as well sell it if you're going to make a profit,
Yeah,
and then move on to the next book.
I mean, I was online, and I was on Instagram, and there was one of my buddies. He was selling some books, and he put up on his live auction. He had a Venom Lethal Protector #1 graded 9.8, and I was like, oh, that's a great buy. Starting bid was $20, and I was like, okay, cool. Buy that, or I'll start the bid off at $20. Nobody else was bidding on it. So then, and there's about 700 of us in this little room, basically bid on books. And he's like, well, okay, well, I got 20. I want to get a little bit more than that. So how about #2, graded 9.8? And so, by the time that he was all done, my bid was still $20, but I had the entire Lethal Protector series, which is 4 books, graded 9.8, and so he was like, well, I guess I'm selling all of these books for $20, and I knew that no matter what, I was going to be ahead on that. So, I actually sent up some extra money and stuff like that just
Good.
to see, like, hey, look, I I know I got this all for $20, but if you're doing me a solid
Just
by
some
sending
extra
this
cash.
stuff out, here's some
Yeah.
extra cash, here's some extra money for the insurance on the comics that I actually have them sent to you, or sent to me, and so all of them came back or came to me here in California. It was coming
No,
from
that was a great deal. I remember you telling me about it. That was a solid deal, and I think that's the way people need to look at these books.
yeah,
Is the stuff that's really heavily printed. If you're getting it in CGC, format, or even PGX format, and you're paying pennies for it because somebody doesn't like the fact it's a 9.4 or an 8.5 or a 9.8 from PGX, just use your reason. It's obvious when you send it in and you do everything you need to do and pay everything you need to pay to get a slab graded copy.
yeah,
You're getting a discount by buying it on the cheap, and you're not having to deal with any of those headaches. That alone right there makes it worthwhile, worth a look.
yeah.
CGC
No,
stuff that's cheap should be looked at, and you should do an estimate of whether or not you think you can flip it or hold it or whatever, and
yeah, no,
it's almost
it's
always a good purchase.
yeah, and that's the other thing is you touched on a good point is it's okay to buy 9.2s and 9.4s. I mean, really,
Exactly.
someone's already gone and spent all the extra money to encapsulate the book. So it's just one less step you have to do. So all you have to do is literally just monitor the book and see when's the right time to actually let the book go so you can actually make the profits. So yeah,
Yeah, our good friend Jarrett was the one that sold me on not focusing heavily on high end comics that
yeah,
given your lower end stuff a look too, and now that's really come to fruition in that a lot of these keys that people couldn't even find back in the day, but you could find them in lower grades, and now they all have extreme value, so
yeah.
it's paid off, and I think getting in the 9.8 mindset is not a good thing for your wallet.
No, it really isn't. I mean, now if you buy a book and say you send it in and it gets a 9.8, you just won the lotto. I mean, that's how I look at it. I can't really stress that enough. It could be a max number one, or it could be a Silver Age book, which Silver Age books won't get 9.8s. They will occasionally, but if you're getting you know a big book that is you know it's already graded and you like the grade, you'll find that you'll actually have an easier time to actually move it if need be. Um, and that's the big thing is if you want to move books. So, but yeah, no, the grading thing is always great. I've bought many slabs and I've sold some and um, occasionally I'll sell one here and there, but for the most part, I pretty much just King Midas all my stuff right now.
Uh-huh.
I'll be buried with all my Amazing Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, you're a solid collector, with a knowledge to dive in and out of the market anytime you want. But there's something to being a collector. The one thing I've noticed, getting to know you and some of the other collectors in our community here
Yeah,
in Northern California, is that being a collector is not a bad thing. It makes you very knowledgeable of characters, storyline, direction, plot. Not to mention the fact that comics backwards and forwards from way back in the day, and it gives
yeah,
you a huge advantage in the marketplace, in my opinion. People opting to not even acknowledge that they like what they're buying or selling, and not even diving in a little bit to the collector's realm, are really making a mistake and missing what's really truly fun about this hobby, in my opinion.
yeah. No, that's a great point. I always stress this. Whether it be with you know, a very seasoned, comic book speculator, or someone who's been collecting books for a really long time, or if it's someone who is literally just walked in off the street and they said they want their kids to start reading comics, like how my dad did with me. Um, and the biggest thing I can stress is that collect what you like. Collect what you like. The value will come later. It really will. Um, and the thing is not a lot of people do that. And so what they'll do is they'll spend most of their time just chasing the numbers and chasing what's hot. Whereas if you're kind of like myself, where you really want just the stories, the actual overall value will actually come later on in time. Now, you might have to spend a little bit higher of a premium depending on what type of book that you're looking at. But for the most part, it shouldn't be really too difficult to get into. And there's a lot of reprints of books. That's a good way to get to know a lot of the classics and actually see if that's actually a book that you actually want to actually own. Because you can look at, for the longest time, I looked at like what's the book? Showcase '92, the first appearance of Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I'm afraid to even admit this to you, but I didn't like the cover. I absolutely did not like
House
the
of
cover.
House of Secrets.
House of Secrets. House of Secrets '92. That's what it was. But yeah, no, I didn't like the cover. But
Really?
yeah, I really didn't. But after
Bernie's turning over in his grave.
I know. I'm sorry, Bernie. Rest in peace. But the thing is looking at that book, I actually really like the way that the interior is on the book.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I might not like, what that book looks like, but as long as the actual, well, just basically if I wanted to slab that book, I wouldn't be, too happy with, because I wouldn't be able to actually see the actual beautiful art on the inside. But yeah, I feel that there's a lot of stuff that was on that cover, and it is a horror book, so and I've been diving a little bit more into that genre, and that's why I like Stillwater the way that I do. So
Yeah. No, House of Secrets '92 is one of the early keys that I bought and flipped, and I should not have never have sold it, to be quite honest, because
yeah,
it's continued to go up in value. Now, in the interim, I have chased down a lot of Swamp Thing, and it's just one of those things where I got a little passion for the covers that Wrightson was kicking out, and his 1 through 10 Swamp Things just blew me away. And I just kept, whenever I'd come across them, especially on the cheap or on sale, I'd pick them up, because I knew that they were limited, and that he only did 10 of them in that string of things. He might have done other horror, but afterwards, but that was
because he did like Vampirella and I want to say Eerie, if I remember right.
He even stretched and even did a Punisher, but it's the most Swamp Thingy Punisher you've ever seen.
Yeah, no, but that goes back to the House of Secrets '92. I think it's a mysterious looking cover, but when I think of Swamp Thing, I think of Swamp Thing #1, and all those other.
I agree.
I think that his style was actually a little bit more defined, a lot better, and it actually, he actually could make really good looking covers. And some people they don't agree with me on that, and that's fine. It's
Well, I think what's missing, and this happens a lot over time, what's missing there is that people are looking at covers now that are assisted by computer graphics,
yeah,
across the board and have been for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And we did back then, the level and the ability of the artist was all that reigned on that paper.
Yep.
That was it. And now the case is that a lot of this stuff has a little bit of anatomical perfection merely because the computer can give you that kind of thing. Whereas before, in the past, these artists had to muster that on their own. Their intellect and their artistic IQ is what brought us these beautiful pieces. And it's you're right. A lot of people will say that, what about this artist? What about that modern stuff or even recent stuff? Yeah. But I got to say, for back in the day, it was no joke. It was seriously some great art.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, I was a big Romita fan when Spider-Man was, when I started collecting Spider-Man, because that's the Spider-Man that I like. And then when I actually started getting down into those lower double digits of Spider-Man, even the single digits, I was kind of like, do I really want to get the Steve Ditko stuff? And then I actually went back and actually started to actually read them again with a fresh pair of eyes. And sometimes that's what you have to do with comics is you might read the book and go, oh my gosh, I didn't really like that book. But then if you actually kind of step back and go, all right, let me try to reread this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to collecting is a lot of people don't get really too much into the indie books because they just go, okay, well, let me read the story. If it's really good, then it's really good, and I'm A-okay with that. But if the art's not there, if this isn't there, then they automatically just write the book off. So, but I think that there's a lot of times where the indie books actually sometimes can have stronger stories. They can have better artists because there's a lot of people that great artists, but they don't really know quite how to actually draw the human form, or but then when they go to draw monsters and stuff like that, they excel at it. That's why a lot of times with indie books, sometimes they'll have multiple artists on the book. So you'll have one person that'll sit there and actually draw all the human people, and then another person draws all the monsters and stuff like that, or whatever the villain might be. But yeah, there's indie stuff is definitely really interesting. But if there's ever like a time that you're just like really, really unsure about a book, maybe you bought that number one of, whatever book it might be, and maybe you just were not in the greatest of moods when you went to actually read the book, that could actually affect whether or not you want to keep collecting that book, or it might propel you to actually want to go out and buy maybe another copy or go buy a graded copy of it.
Well, this is something we've kind of talked about, but what you're talking about reminds me a little bit of this, in that you kind of grow as a collector. As you collect this stuff, you become knowledgeable about it, and stuff that seemed really cool initially is like kind of boring.
Yeah.
And stuff that's just seemed outright, for lack of a better term, dork central.
Yeah.
Actually picks up your interest a little bit more. Like we've talked about Kirby, when I first got into comics as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, how can people think that's something to want to do, to emulate? But now, as an older guy, having collected a lot of this stuff and looked at some of it, I'm pretty impressed with some of what he was trying to do from an art standpoint with his art. What he was, the impact he had, and it's just, I think that's the beauty, and that's, again, we come full circle to importance of being a collector in this affair. Is it gives you a deeper appreciation for the stuff, the material you're trading in and out of.
Yeah, and that's what's really fun about it, is that you can actually have actual pieces of history that I own a lot of Kirby stuff.
I own some Kirby stuff, but yes, I wish I owned more.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you start to actually kind of evolve as a collector. For the longest time, I just wanted the newest book off the shelf. That was it. That was my biggest mentality. Um, but now I'm a little bit more of a, you know what? I want to actually um, have a lot of the stuff that actually they're not reprinting it. They're not, you know, and you can actually really appreciate the art and everything. And when you actually start really appreciating the art, I think that you actually enjoy, as kind of sappy as some of the stories are. They just have a real innocence to them. Whereas like newer books that are coming out, they have a lot of politics or um, current events type of thing, and you know,
You go back. I want to jump in here because I
yeah,
think you said something really really relevant here. Is there's a lot of identity politics space throughout Hollywood and the comic book industry, and whatever your politics, you got to admit it was a much better time in comics when
yeah,
that those kind of issues were kept out of comic books, and they just stuck with the basic story. And there were occasionally things where they dealt with death, they dealt with drugs, they dealt with love, they dealt with lost love, they dealt with even people changing in some form, transforming into something else. But
yeah,
it wasn't it was natural to the story and to the character and to where you're going. It wasn't some, here, let me clump my political views on top of the comic book.
yeah. I mean,
And that started happening in the 80s to 90s and really took off in the 2000s. And unfortunate, because you're right. When you look back in those older books, there's a real clarity, a real simplicity of story,
yeah,
a real delineation of good and evil.
yeah. And the thing that's really kind of nice about him is that it's a classic story, so you know it's gonna be all original when you start collecting those things. Um, and then going a little bit further, um, the you might not appreciate the art, but if you kind of think about what they were actually dealing with during those times, you know, comic books are in some way uh, an escape from your everyday reality and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
um, it's just like how people pick up Harry Potter to go read that and stuff like that.
People read Harry Potter.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Kidding. I'm
yeah
kidding.
there's a lot of
I'm
them.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Norm's the guy that doesn't like Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
guys. She knows it. Me. I'm an LOTR guy through and through right here, man. Aragorn and Legolas and the whole bunch. That's me. That's my group. Them and
So
Conan.
yeah, so and the nice thing about it is that reading a novel is one thing. Actually, reading a comic book that actually has the pictures that actually go alongside with the actual book um, is really um, it really helps with the story and a lot of the action and stuff like that. So yeah.
What do you think of the Marvel Special Edition 15? Seen some of the stuff they got out on Shang Chi. Some of the, or at least the latest trailer. I really liked it.
Oh yeah.
I'm expecting big things from this book. So, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Shang Chi. I've been noticing. I've been pressing probably about. I've done probably about 100 of them
Oh
within this
my
last
God,
month.
really?
Yeah.
100 Shang Chi's in the past month.
Yeah.
Are they all for one guy?
No. Nope.
Oh,
They're
sure.
no. All different customers of mine. But yeah, no, it's a really really popular book. For
I want to make a point here about that. I think that's interesting, but it shows that a lot of times people are making adjustments and changes and getting stuff slabbed. Sometimes they do it a little bit late
yeah,
in the book or the movie or whatever's coming out, and that's something that should have been slabbed 2 or 3 years ago when we first heard they were looking at doing something like this, which is what I did, and I'm happy to have that and be sitting on it right now
yep,
because you're going to send 100 of them that Steve has just pressed are probably all going into CGC right this, next couple of weeks or whatever.
Yep.
And, we'll see what we see, I guess. But you really want to be, kind of following the herd there. I don't know. You want that done way ahead of the movie, huh?
Yeah, 100%. You should, as soon as you hear any sort of movie announcement or anything like that, there's definitely a lot of boards where people talk about comics and stuff like that. But the thing is like when that first announcement happened back in, I want to say it was like 2019. That's when you should have been tracking that book down, trying to get your hands on it. It was extremely cheap. It was like $10 at max. Unless it was like a super, super high grade. And I'm talking in a raw perspective. If it was already slabbed, you're probably looking at about $100 book back in that time.
That was a hell of a deal for that book.
Yeah,
picking it up slab back then would have been a good deal. And yeah, no, I agree. I purchased mine in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
And sent it in to be slabbed over the next year or so. Took my time with it, not having to worry about it or anything.
Yeah, and that's really what a lot of people should really start kind of changing their focus on. You might not have the first appearance of Shang Chi right now, but the book after the movie comes out, and if it does extremely well, it might continue to go up depending on how the box office is. Now, if it doesn't go up, and Marvel still wants to use that character for, say, an Avenger movie or for whatever they're going to do with him later on, then would be the time to actually buy that book, get it off to get slabbed, go and sit on it, because that's what a lot of people do is they'll buy those books, and it's okay to miss a couple and come back around to them, just because unless they kill off Shang-Chi in that movie, there probably will be another use of him in a future movie.
Oh, yeah. Second appearance of Shang-Chi, origin of Shang-Chi, some of the major villains he fights early on. I believe his sister has a book where she comes out in one of the books as his sister, and that would be a collectible. Also, the main villain, Mandarin, maybe not getting the first appearance in Silver Age, but maybe the second appearance in the Silver Age. Some of these books that we're talking about are not that expensive right now. You can still pick them up at really decent prices.
Well, it's just because like everybody's so unsure about it, and it wasn't until I was walked into a Target, and I reference a lot of action figures sometimes, but the thing is when Hasbro actually pushed out all their Marvel Legends that were the Shang-Chi figures, you could have walked into any Target and they had stacks and stacks and stacks of Shang-Chi stuff.
I wish I had.
And the thing is nobody was buying them because nobody knew what the movie was, and because they saw the first movie trailer,
and that's the great time to buy the book, buy whatever collectible you're going to buy the action figure when no one's picking them up, when they don't know what the heck it is. And there's a lot of that out there. I think as Marvel fans, it's really easy to forget. The average public out there has no idea the depth and breadth of the Marvel bench, that it could go on for 50 years and we still wouldn't have seen every possible character or iteration. It's just so much writing over so many decades that it's fantastic to be able to relive my childhood in some of these movies, watching them put the first Spidey up there, or the first Green Goblin, or the first whatever. It's been quite a joy. As far as Shang-Chi goes, I was immediately sold recently when I saw the double kick in I don't know if it was a BART or what it was. It looked like a BART, some kind of rapid transit train, and he double kicks two opponents at the same time. And it was so well done that I was just instantly sold right then that martial arts is going to be pretty solid. I've listened to one reviewer who basically said the first half of the movie with the martial arts is just extraordinary. So should be a lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a great movie. I think it's something that we haven't seen a good martial arts movie in a long time. So,
Ninja Assassin was the last one.
Yeah. So.
Did you see that one?
Yeah, oh, yeah, I've seen that.
That's a good movie.
Um,
Rain kills it.
Yeah, right.
No, he's like some pop star from Korea, and he killed it as the hero in that martial arts flick. Anyways, getting off topic.
No, I know. Well, so do you want to close it up then?
Yeah, that'd be a good one to end on, is Marvel Special Edition. Maybe we'll come back with some numbers in next week, talk a little bit more about it. Maybe even touch on some of the other villains or heroes or anybody, ancillary characters in that particular story.
Yeah. Doesn't it? I believe it comes out this week as well, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's soon. I don't know when, but I believe it's in September. And there's a bunch. I think that and Venom, right? Is Venom coming out in December?
Venom, I believe, is in October.
October, okay. Yeah. September, October. Wow. Okay, one hit a month. Great. Yeah.
But alrighty. So this is Steve, part of Steve's Comic Pressing. Just wanted to sign off, and with my buddy Norm over here. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.